Hello friends, thank you so much for joining me for this video. Over the weekend I was going through my makeup and I was realizing, man, you have a lot of foundations. And I think part of what maybe makes us accumulate a few foundations here and there is just all the different categories. You know, you can justify maybe getting another tinted moisturizer because, you know, that's so different from all these full coverage ones that I have. And then there's sort of a middle ground where it's more of a medium coverage. And then what about the stick foundations or the powders? They're just all these different categories of foundation. And I thought, what if I had to narrow it down and just have one in all of these different categories? You know, that would really cause me to look critically at everything I have. I thought it might be fun to do that today. The different categories that I've narrowed it down to are light coverage. So we're talking tinted moisturizers, I think, fall into that level of coverage. The BB cream skin tint sort of category. Then medium coverage foundation, full coverage foundation, stick foundation, and then powder foundation. So overall, I'm kind of like giving you a top 5, one from each of these categories, if I could only keep one. So we're going to start with the lightest. The category that I would say is, again, like a tinted moisturizer, a skin tint, maybe just a really light coverage foundation in general. That's the way I just kind of mentally group it in my collection. And when I'm thinking about that type of foundation, one that's really become top of mind is the Wet n Wild Bare Focus Tinted Hydrator. And you might think, like, everything you have, you know, I have a whole, like, kind of a small drawer of things in this category, and out of all that stuff, you pick Wet n Wild. And honestly, this is a tremendous product. This looks so beautiful on the skin. There have been so many quick and simple makeup looks where this has been the thing pulled in because it just in an instant takes your skin and makes it look more healthy and radiant, but not in a super like shimmery way. It's not caused by the sparkle. It's like the hydration, but yet there's still some lightness. There's a super ease in blending with this product. So everything I think of when I think lightweight, this delivers on it. It does have hyaluronic acid squalane. It's oil-free. They call it a sheer to medium coverage, and I think that's kind of an interesting range to actually talk about with this. I wouldn't say it goes all the way to medium. I'd overall just call it light. That is kind of what's between sheer and medium, right? But it looks beautiful. You can put it all over the skin. You could definitely boost up your coverage with different concealers and maybe a setting powder that you might add to this look. But yeah, I wear this in the shade light and I absolutely love it. I think it's doing a better job than a number of different high-end tinted moisturizers that I have. So in terms of light coverage, this is awesome. Now to medium coverage, you guys are gonna think, gosh, Wet n Wild has bought and paid for this video. No, never sponsored, but I've gotta tell you, my favorite medium coverage foundation, this shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, Wet n Wild Photo Focus. I'm picking the matte original version of this, which I wear in soft beige, and this has just, in the past, like I wanna say, year and a half maybe, this has surged for me. You know, like this product, when I know I want great staying power, yet I want an ease of blending, maybe I don't feel like I need the fullest coverage, but I want to almost approach that place. You know, it's definitely a strong medium coverage here. I go for this, and the dewy is nice as well, but the key difference I think between the dewy and the matte for me, because I can definitely get away with wearing either texture, I have normal skin, the key difference is the staying power with this. I feel like this really can look fresh for a long time, stay on the skin, you know. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention application. With this one, I would use a brush, something like, you know, a dense buffer brush, maybe like the e.l.f. hair on it, e.l.f. Complexion Duo brush, great one for anything lightweight. I could also use a brush for this or a beauty blender. It can kind of go either way, but the way it is here, they give you a little spatula, and so I just kind of take the spatula out, and whatever is on there ends up getting swiped on my face. And that's the amount that I use, kind of a weird measure of the product. But if you've never tried this, I think you will be very impressed by, number one, the coverage level, and number two, the staying power. And also, I would say, even though they call this one matte, it's not an unnatural matte, okay? Another one that I really like that was kind of grouped in with this coverage level, like NARS Sheer Glow. I think that one's really beautiful as well. But I think this might have it beat in the coverage and probably the staying power too. Just a little more hardcore where that's concerned. But I love this foundation. I tell you, light, medium coverage products, Wet n Wild, do not overlook them. I know the smell on this, I've pretty much gotten past it entirely, but there is kind of a, what am I smelling? It's not quite crayons, but I don't know if I've ever tried to actually explain what this foundation smells like, but it's something you notice maybe as soon as you open the container and swipe it on your face, but beyond that, honestly, it's not affecting anyone past that. And another interesting thing about this, when this first came out, when it was brand new, I didn't quite latch on to it like I have within the last year or so. I've really realized that it's doing so many things right, and if a foundation can wear a long time on me and look pretty much as fresh as it did when I first put it on, like, that's huge. That's a huge accomplishment. It's asking a lot to say, I want that to look pretty much how it did when I put it on without touching up throughout a whole day and caring for 3 kids and going outside in the heat and every other thing that I do. It's a seriously great foundation that, again, I would put in the medium coverage category. Now, what about full coverage? I've talked about some great full coverage foundations over the years, but one that, my goodness, I took a picture of myself, okay? It was all solidified over the weekend for me on this. I had a date night with Bub, or a date late afternoon as it turned out, on Saturday. And at the start of that day, at around 5 a.m., you know, I get up at the same time every day, I put on my NARS Soft Matte Foundation. Now, I did not touch up my foundation. By day's end, what I did was I added a lash and I touched up my lip color, but I did not go putting more foundation, concealer, or powder on my skin. And I took a picture right before we left, and there is no editing on this picture. There is nothing special done to this picture. There's no filter on it. The skin is that covered, yet I think it looks really pretty. Now, it's got steps like bronzer and blush and highlight that give the skin some more dimension, but this is a matte foundation and it wears like iron and it covers so much. I wear it in the shade Patagonia Medium 1.2. I've also recently been singing the praises of that soft matte concealer. I wore that along with this, even though I've worn many different concealers with this foundation and liked it. I was just reminded over the weekend of just how gorgeous this is on the skin and how it makes your face just look like you could be in a magazine with, you know, like no fancy filters or anything done to it. The format here, it is like a squeeze bottle. I try to squeeze out what looks like what I get when I do a pump of foundation with other varieties, you know, and I definitely like applying this with a beauty blender, and I still get that really full coverage even with beauty blender application, which sometimes we think of, you know, taking coverage down just a little bit in favor of keeping everything looking more natural and really worked into the skin well, but you will still get amazingly full coverage with this, and it wears. It has proven itself through sweat, through heat and humidity. Some days you're just in a nice kind of like climate controlled environment. There's nothing really fighting with your makeup except your own face and your oil production and whatnot, but even putting this out in the elements, it always lasts. It always lasts, I gotta tell you. So beautiful coverage, indestructible staying power, like that is my favorite there. Now, moving on to a stick foundation, which kind of might also be the cream category. Cream foundations, like, I have hardly anything that I even own that is the classic cream foundation, you know? Maybe that's one more reason why I need to get some more foundations. I need to try more creams. But I do think of creams as stick foundations, which is just a cream in a stick format that you're going to swipe on directly from the stick, right? I've got several that I really, really like, but a top favorite, and this is the one I chose to like demo for you in this video. And by the way, if you don't see a demo for the others, I will most definitely link below to a video where those got applied. If you're like, okay, my interest is really piqued on that NARS or the tinted hydrator or whatever, I will link. But my favorite stick foundation continues to be this one from Huda. Faux Filter Skin Finish Buildable Coverage Foundation Stick, which I wear in shortbread. This foundation stick feels downright velvety going across the skin, and it's smooth, it's creamy, it's easy to blend in. It's not like a sticky, dewy cream. It has that velvety kind of like, doesn't really affect the texture of your skin all that much. You wouldn't feel the need to be extreme about setting this with a ton of powder or something, okay? So it's that cream texture, but it's, I'm not saying it's going cream to powder, but it's just staying kind of velvety on the skin, yet a natural skin-like look when you're done. I would call it a strong medium coverage, nearing full. And the way I like to apply it is actually with the recommended brush. I remember when I bought this, I also bought this brush, and it's the Face Build and Buff brush. And it actually, I mean, if those brush heads look huge, they are. Like, that's a lot of surface area to cover. And I find myself using the fuller side to sweep over the larger planes of the face base, and then there's this like triangular sort of pyramid shaped side, and that can be really nice getting up around the under eye, the nose, any small areas. But another thing this brush does is it keeps you from pressing and pressuring all the coverage out of your product. By that I mean sometimes we can get in there with a really stiff brush and just start moving that around to where is the coverage anymore? You know, you've done too much. And here I feel like the size of the brush, I mean, it's not a floppy brush, it's very dense, it's pretty stiff, but in some way this prevents you from blending away the coverage. And like I said, finished look, you know, that's on well moisturized skin, but I didn't have any kind of dewy primer underneath or anything like that, but I still came away from this stick looking very natural in the whole skin finish, plus really good staying power with this. You know, most days if I'm wearing this, I'm pretty much expecting a no touch-up day. It may not be as strong a staying power as the NARS Soft Matte, but you know, it's in the ballpark actually. And sometimes that's the huge critique with stick foundations, is because those creams just don't always hang on as well, but that one totally does. And I hate to be like, oh, but you also need this brush, but the brush is really good. You could also get by with something like this, you know, size-wise, it's not actually far off from this one end, but I've always wanted to reach for this when I'm using that stick, and it's always gone well, okay? Finally, last thing I'm gonna mention here is a powder foundation. If I had to let go of all powder foundations and just keep one, a really remarkable one that I have is from Laura Geller, and it's not that classic most popular Balance and Brighten. It's the one called Double Take Baked Versatile Powder Foundation. And I wear this in the medium shade, and it is still, you know, like a baked powder, but it's all one shade. And this is what they call their like medium to full coverage option, whereas the Balance and Brighten is actually referred to as like a light to medium coverage. I might have the terminology slightly off there and specifically what they call it, but this is more the coverage packed powder. It is so smooth. It feels just creamy as heck, and it does cover beautifully. I did a look and I paired this with the Spackle Mattify Primer. Not saying you have to get that with this, but I demonstrate it in a video, and it's really one of the most poreless looks ever. But this powder foundation is really nice applied with this brush. This is the e.l.f. Ultimate Blending Brush, so it doesn't have to be this brush, could even be like this brush. You know, I keep holding up this double-ended thing, but it's very versatile. But I would, you know, kind of roll it in this product. You don't have to scrub or buff in because it will easily pick up onto your brush. And then, you know, I do kind of a combination of dabbing this in around the skin and doing a little bit of a buff as well. It's absolutely beautiful. It completely, like I said, takes away the appearance of pores. It does not look too flat and matte and cakey. Laura Geller knows what she's doing with powder foundations, okay? If you want a brand that really knows their stuff with the whole baked concept and the whole powder foundation idea, it's Laura Geller. Another way this can be nice is if you've got any kind of light coverage, sheer coverage product, and you're like, you know, I could amp that up a little bit, I could add to that somewhat. This is a great add-on coverage step. That's kind of the nice thing about powder foundations, is they're great when they can stand alone. That's definitely the best test of it, but they can be very useful partner products to something that's not quite living up to your coverage expectations. In case you're wondering about the application of a powder foundation and how does that play in with a concealer, you can watch that all go down in the video that I'll link below, but just so you know, I would probably put some primer on the skin, and then I would use my concealer. So get that concealer all blended in and then go in with the powder. Then I may use less of this powder because I've already concealed some areas, and it just makes more sense to me to kind of go over top of that concealer with this. I may also actually set my concealer with a lighter powder and then use this all over the rest of the skin. But yeah, this is a hugely underrated product, and I've got some really good powder foundations. I think of the one from One Size, I think of the Glowish one from Huda. e.l.f. is making a great powder foundation, but this one reigns supreme. If I could only keep one, it's this. So guys, hopefully that sorts things out for you if you're looking for a good foundation in one of those categories. Some ideas of what to look for. I really tried to think open-minded, you know, drugstore and high-end. Everything I own, those are the picks. So thank you so much for your time today, everyone. Let me know your video requests down below, and I will see you soon. I love you. Bye.